Hey guys, what's up? It's AutoBotMike18 here with another movie review. Guys, in this video I will be reviewing the new film that just came out this weekend that's based off the very popular book series of the same name, and it is Divergent. Guys, real quick, before I get into the actual review, I apologize if I have to stop and take a drink of water, but I have a cold. It's brewing. It's not full-blown yet, but I feel it. I got a very messed up sore throat. And I know I'm going to have to stop and take a sip of water at some point, but I do apologize in advance for that. So anyway, guys, as for the new film Divergent, yes, I did go to the movies today while sick, but I can't go for the rest of the week, and I can't go next week, so I decided to just, grin and bear it and go see Divergent. And usually in most of my movie reviews, guys, I actually end up saying that I was really looking forward to this movie. The trailers were awesome. I always say that in all my movie reviews, but I can't say the same thing for Divergent, because honestly, I went into this movie completely blind. The only thing I knew about this movie was the cast. Who was who in the cast? I knew Shailene Woodley was in the movie. I knew Kate Winslet and Ashley Judd and Miles Teller. Other than that, I knew nothing about this movie. I've never read the books by Veronica Roth. I know it's a 3-book series, kind of like the Hunger Games, but I never read the books, and I don't even remember watching the trailers, honestly. So I went into this movie completely blind, and I say it was actually a smart thing to do, because I actually ended up enjoying the movie more than some people who probably watched the trailer did, and who didn't read the book. So anyway, with that being said, that is how I saw Divergent today. If you haven't read the books and you haven't even seen the trailers, this review is perfect for you, because you're just like me. That's exactly what I did going into the movie today. But anyway, as for the film itself, I am going to say that I enjoyed the movie. It was, I heard bad things about it. I saw the score on Rotten Tomatoes, and I knew that, it wasn't as good as I thought it would be at first. And it surprised me, but it wasn't as bad as some people are saying it is. I actually enjoyed it. Does it have a couple problems wrong with it? Yes, it does. I did find a few faults in this movie, but nevertheless, I still had an enjoyable time in the movie, despite the fact that I didn't even feel good. So that's one thing. But anyway, guys, let's get into the actual review right now. The first thing I'm going to start off by talking about in the review is the plot. I'm going to briefly discuss it. Now, I might not give the best description of it, because I'm still trying to put the pieces together of the whole movie and the whole series itself, because I knew nothing about it going in, but I will do my best, and I will not spoil anything. But anyway, basically this is another one of those movies set in the future where there was some kind of war that happened. Yeah, the first half of this movie definitely is reminiscent of the Hunger Games. I know that. However, I'm not saying this movie is a direct rip-off of the Hunger Games, because I wouldn't agree with that. Some people have been saying that. I disagree. But Divergent, our main character in this film is Shailene Woodley's character. Her name is Beatrice. She later shortens her name in the movie to Triss. And she is living in a dystopian, futuristic society that had just gone through apparently a very serious war. And now the society of Chicago, the city of Chicago, apparently that's the only city in the movie, is split up into 5 different factions, 5 different groups. And it's kind of based on your specific personality and your mood in that. So, and when a teenager comes of age, of a certain age, you have to be tested by the certain aptitude test to find out which faction you fit into. So Shailene Woodley's character is finally of age. She goes to take the test, and her results are inconclusive. She ends up being placed into 3 different groups. So she becomes the rare case known as a divergent. Divergents are very rare, very rarely will you have a person taking that test that ends up belonging to several different groups. So that person, whenever that does happen, is known as a divergent. So that is what Shailene Woodley is. Now, you will take that test, but you can still make a decision as to what group you want to go into. So since Shailene Woodley fit into 3 different groups, she picks one of the groups, known as Dauntless. She goes to train with them and become a member of that group. Meanwhile, the fact that she is divergent is going to just come back later and, slap her in the face, and it's going to cause a couple problems for her, because the divergents are kind of frowned upon by society. So that's basically the whole movie summed up. I'm sorry if the summary was so long, but you know what? That's honestly the first half of the movie. I didn't even get into half of the other things that happen in the movie, but I don't want to, because I will be spoiling them for anyone who hasn't read the books. So this review is good for you because I haven't read the book, so I know nothing. I didn't know anything about the movie going in, so that's how I'm going to keep the premise. That's all I'm going to say for the premise. But I will say this much, a lot more does happen in the second and third acts of the movie. So anyway, I am going to say this much about the screenplay for Divergent, and the story itself. While it does feel like the Hunger Games, I'm not denying that, okay? The first half of this movie, the training sequences, the fact that you get picked by certain groups. Hold on one second, guys. I need to get some water. Oh, that feels good. The fact that you get picked by, you know, these groups and then you got to go through a training sequence or whatever, that definitely feels like the Hunger Games, okay? I'm not denying that. But this movie is its own type of movie. It's not a direct ripoff. I'm not saying that in any way. This movie knows what it wants to be, and it is its own type of movie. Yes, it is one of those young adult novels that is, you know, turned into a movie for teenagers, but it's still its own type of movie. It's not too similar to the Hunger Games, even though it is reminiscent, if that makes sense. But I will say this much, the story for this movie was actually very entertaining. I went into this, like I said, completely blind, and I was very, you know, entertained in the first two halves. I found it to be enjoyable. I liked the whole thing about, you know, everyone being split into groups. I thought the Shailene Woodley's group, I already forget the name, I thought they were a bunch of assholes, but you know what, I liked the fact that everyone is split into groups based off personality. If you don't fit well in this one group, Dauntless, that she's in, you get booted out. You know, I liked that. So I liked the overall premise of the movie, even though the movie fell apart in the third half of it for me. It kind of got a little messy, but I'll get into that later. Moving on, guys, real quick, talking about the cast. This movie has a very stacked cast of actors who, a lot of actors we've seen in the past before, like Kate Winslet and Ashley Judd, and a lot of newcomer actors like Shailene Woodley, Miles Teller, Theo James, Jai Courtney, and Zoe Kravitz. Just a few names to mention. So real quick, let's talk about our main star, female lead, Shailene Woodley. What can I say? I really do like Shailene Woodley. I like where she's going with her career. She starred in The Descendant. She starred in Spectacular Now. And I thought she was fantastic in both movies. And I think she pulls off a very interesting performance in this movie as well. I really enjoyed her character. I bought the character development in this movie for basically every character, so I gotta praise the movie for that. I liked her character specifically because she's kind of like the outcast. She is the Divergent, and that's frowned upon by society. They will kill you if you are found out to be the Divergent, because that's not, you know, how society goes. You're either in a group or not. You can't fit to multiple groups. That's why society frowns upon that. And I liked that whole thing that was going on in the movie. And Shailene Woodley is the Divergent, and I think that was pretty cool, how the story focuses on that one character that is frowned upon by society. But Shailene Woodley pulled off a very good performance. What can I say? Theo James plays the guy in Shailene Woodley's faction. He's kind of like one of the leaders, kind of. His name is Four in the movie, and I thought his acting was solid in the first two halves, but it kind of fell apart in the third half for me. The rest of the performances were fine. You know, they come into the movie and they're necessary for their scenes, and they were good. Kate Winslet was fine. Ashley Judd was fine. Jai Courtney, Zoe Kravitz, they were all fine. Miles Teller, who I must admit was actually quite funny in the movie, and just to see him and Shailene Woodley back with each other, they both starred in Spectacular Now, that was kind of cool. So, it was good to see the two of them in the movie, and Miles Teller was good. Of course, he was very good in Spectacular Now. So anyway, guys, that's basically the cast of the movie. But like I said, stacked cast of a lot of actors that we're going to see a lot more of them in the next few years. Anyway, guys, moving on, I think it's time... I gotta keep clearing my throat. To get into my rating for the film and a couple of problems and things I liked about the movie. So, after having seen the movie and given it some thought, because my rating changed as I watched it. At first I went high, and then I went a little low, and then I went high again, then I went back down a little bit. So in the end, I'm going to give Divergent an 8 out of 10. Solid 8 out of 10, B-. For that reason, I would give the movie a fresh rating. I would think it's an enjoyable movie to see, and I think you will enjoy it. I think fans of the book will really enjoy it, because after seeing the movie, I went online and I read the whole synopsis of the book. And I think they got the synopsis right from the book. I think, you know, a lot of similar things happened in the movie happened in the book. Basically, almost the whole book was, you know, in this movie. You saw it in this movie. So I think fans of the book will be pleased. People who haven't read the book might be a little upset, but I found it to be mildly enjoyable. Getting to some of the things I did like about the movie. Like I said, the performances were pretty good for this type of movie. Shailene Woodley definitely carried the movie. While Theo James kind of fell apart for me, he was still decent. The screenplay for the first two halves, even though the first half kind of felt like The Hunger Games to me, was good, in my opinion. It was entertaining. The overall build-up of the story, the premise of the story overall, I like it. I think it's different in its own sense. This is definitely not a direct rip-off of The Hunger Games. It has its own type of story, even though it feels similar to The Hunger Games, but it's not a direct ripoff. So I'll praise the screenplay for that. Fell apart in the third act, which I'll get into. I must say, the movie was well directed. A few too many close-up shots, though, on the actors' faces. I would have cut off on a few of those. They could have went for a few more wide shots, but that's just me. And finally, the last two things I'll praise about the movie, I really liked the soundtrack. The soundtrack started growing on me as I heard each song. I've never heard any of the songs in the soundtrack, but I'm going to go Google them after I film this review because I really liked the soundtrack. The songs, they just fit the tone, you know, and I really liked that. And I will say this much, the production design was really good. You know, seeing this city kind of in ruins, seeing these different factions, the setting itself, the production design was very good for this type of movie. That big fence, I thought all that was really cool. The scene where Shailene Woodley is flying through the night on that zip line, I thought that was really cool. The production design was good in the movie. As for problems, I hate to talk about a movie, but if a movie has problems, I'm not going to not talk about them. So, as for the problems, the number one thing that I know a lot of people are going to complain about, especially fans of The Hunger Games, especially, you know, maybe, you know, anyone who worked on the Hunger Games movies, the movie does feel like the Hunger Games. And I'm not going to say the whole thing does, because the third act definitely does not feel like the Hunger Games. I'm going to say that the first act, the scenes where they're training and, you know, they have special skills and whatnot, that kind of felt like the Hunger Games to me. I'm not going to lie. And I'm not going to take this movie, you know, I'm not going to deduct this movie's score because of that, but I took like a, you know, smidge off of the score because of that, because it does feel like the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games was written first, Divergent was written second, so you could say that the author kind of, her inspiration was the Hunger Games, but it does feel a little too similar, so that is one thing I have with the movie. Also, the fact that Shailene Woodley is a Divergent really isn't brought up too much. It's brought up in the beginning, but they kind of let it go for like the first act. You know, and I was like, why is this movie called Divergent? And then, of course, you know, I found out why in the end. You know, it made sense because they you know, dealt more with that aspect of the story. But the first half, I was like, why aren't they talking about the fact she's a Divergent? Why isn't she even bringing it up to anyone? I don't know. But that's another thing I had, little problem I had with the movie. And finally, the third act was my biggest problem with the film because that's when the writing started to fall apart. I thought it was solid for the first two halves. I enjoyed it. Third half, things got sloppy. I think the cliches started to roll out. Things started to get very predictable. A certain character is going to meet a certain fate, and the character survives. I called that coming. I called several other things that were going to happen. I predicted they would happen, and they did. So that's when the cliches and the predictableness of the movie started to happen. The writing got a little sloppy. Some things got a little stupid, in my opinion. And it just, you know, the story was itself getting exciting, but I just didn't feel excited. You know, I wasn't drawn into the third act like I thought I would be. You know, the big climax and everything. But that's really all I have to say about the movie, guys. Overall, like I said, this is an enjoyable movie. I think it will please fans of the book. I think fans of the people who haven't read the books, I think you can sit and watch this movie and enjoy it for what it is. It's not as good as The Hunger Games. It feels a little bit too similar to The Hunger Games, but it's not a direct ripoff. So, 8 out of 10 for me for Divergent. I would say if you're fans of the book, definitely go see it. If you're not, see it on a cheap night if you want to see it. But I will say it's worth watching because I actually enjoyed it. And I wouldn't pay anything over $10. I paid $12.25. My mistake. I went too late to go see the movie. I would not pay over $10, but it is a movie worth seeing in the theaters. You can see it in IMAX too, but I didn't. But yeah, so that is my thoughts on Divergent. This is also one of those movies I would want to watch again just to, you know, process everything. But I wouldn't pay that much for it on Blu-ray. I would buy it like on Black Friday really cheap on like a bargain price. But anyway, guys, that's how I feel about Divergent. I would go see the next two movies if they do get made because I want to see what happens in the story, obviously. So I think I will check them out. But anyway, guys, that's how I feel about Divergent. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the movie if you did see it. And if you're fans of the book, was it true to the source material? Do you feel the movie was very accurate, or were you disappointed with it if you're a fan of the book? So again, guys, that's it for my review. 8 out of 10 for me. Decent movie. Go check it out. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Bye.